Welcome back to Morning Express this Thursday morning as we look to begin conversations tailored around stories as captured earlier on the newspapers. Joining us in the studio this morning to broaden the scope of our conversation is a revered public affairs analyst and social commentator, Mr. Moses Idika. Good morning to you, Mr. Idika, and welcome to the studio.
Good morning. How do you do?
I must say you're looking very sharp.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Now let's get into the business of today. Quite sadly, we keep talking about this year in, year out, and it's the issue of perennial flooding. Although the report issued as it concerns the cause of the floods in Mokwa local government area of Niger says this time around it's not the fault of any dams that were opened, but torrential rainfall with climate change to bear the brunt. So far so good. There have been efforts and a vow this morning by the president to rebuild and restore the flood hit areas in Mokwa. What do you make of this development?
I must say my condolences to the people of Mokwa, to Niger State, and to Nigeria, because you are hearing that the government accounting for about 200 casualties.
This morning is risen to 208.
208 casualties, and there's hardly any war zone, not even Ukraine, where there are bombs being thrown and all drones, not even during the Gaza time that you got this number of persons dying in one day. So it's a national disaster. But having said that, you now come to what is our preparation as a nation. Now we are talking about climate change. Climate change didn't start today. For about 2 decades, the governments of all countries, including Nigeria, have been talking about climate change. Like today in our National Assembly, we even have a committee on climate change. But it's like we do more talk than walking the talk. Torrential rainfall, yes. Torrential rainfall, Nigeria has a clear two seasons. The dry season, the rainy season. We don't have all those other, some countries or some continents, they have 4 seasons. But whatever it is, in Nigeria, we are already aware that there is going to be rains, maybe in some sections of the country from April, some June, some May, some. So it's not like it's emergency. That is my point. So over the years, we have Ecological Fund Office, whose sole duty is to mitigate some of these things. We have NIMET, which has the mandate to predict the weather so that we can be forewarned.
The early warning signs.
You understand? We have Federal Ministry of Water Resources. We have Federal Ministry of Environment. These are layers of government agencies that are saddled with responsibilities of ensuring that such things do not happen. We have National Emergency Agency,
Management Agency,
that should respond quickly to things like this. All this plethora of agencies, they have failed to prevent this perennial flood. They have failed to prevent this unwarranted deaths. So this is a complete failure of government to respond.
Now, in the government's response yesterday, I'm very sure visuals will be greeting our screens, and we'll speak to those visuals in a minute. The Vice President, Kashim Shettima, visited the area first aerially to take an aerial assessment of the impact of the flood. And to my dismay, it was more or less in large expense. Almost seems as though an entire local government was submerged. And I was thinking that in response, much like you said, do we think that NEMA should also be equipped to have helicopters to kind of attempt to pick people from this vast expense we're seeing?
Well, you cannot, when you talk about emergency response system, most emergencies all over the world, most rescues are done via helicopters. So you can't have a NEMA that does not have a helicopter. You say, what if bridges collapse, so there can't be access? in cases of flood like this, it means the land, you can't have access because vehicles can't drive, through flooded areas. Even I haven't seen that NEMA. I haven't seen any boat branded NEMA, whereas we have hundreds of kilometers of coastal areas. We have rivers that are prone to overflowing their banks. So when you look at all this, you see there is no preparation. And if you look at it, each time there is this natural disaster, fire, building collapse, the next thing, relief material. What is the relief material? Mattresses, pillows,
some cash
drinks,
donations,
and then cash donations, and people's lives would have been shattered. So I think this is the time that Nigeria as a country should begin to take the lives of its citizens serious, because why all these things happen is that the elites, the ruling class, you have never heard that any government house was flooded. You've never heard that even a local government secretariat is flooded, because those structures are properly built, they respect environmental laws, ensure that such will not happen. For example, in the area where this TV station is located, if there is a fire incident or flood, you will see that the response will be in minutes, because the roads are accessible, properly mapped. But Nigerians that live in the rural areas are like people who are outside the planet. They are forgotten. They are only remembered either during the time of elections or in cases like this where the president went to take vice president went there to take area picture, because those people don't seem to matter to the government of Nigeria. So I think that Nigeria should also begin to, hold our government to account. We have a Niger state that should have a Ministry of Environment and all other agencies, including Emergency Response Agency. What is on ground over the years? What has happened to those government agencies that get annual budgetary allocations, grants? Some of them even get grants from foreign agencies, yet you don't see anything. They don't even have vests to identify them as emergency responders. So when this thing boils down to corruption and to lack of leadership where it is needed.
Now we're seeing more images hitting the screens talking about the victim, because the tragedy has also been broken down in figures. Earlier you highlighted that the death toll at 208. Up until now, several hundreds of people are missing. We're also told that the impact on children as well, over 1,200 children impacted across houses also involved, 265 houses damaged. We also have displaced persons, and some pictures coming in this morning, the youths taking it upon themselves to build makeshift wooden bridges in the interim whilst they're expecting more efforts on the part of the government. And for people who are living with this tragedy, how best can they be attended to?
Well, the thing is that it is such an unfortunate situation. Like I said earlier, the worst hit are poor Nigerians whose only crime is because they are Nigerians and they choose to live in that Mokwa local government. Before the flood, if you go to the Mokwa local government, I'm sure you may not even find doctors in the clinics there. I'm sure that there is no fire station there, which means there is no trained person to rescue troubled people in cases like this. The road from Mina, the state capital, to Mokwa, I can't guarantee that you can drive on it smoothly to be able to respond quickly. Of course, there is no airstrip. If there were an airstrip, perhaps the vice president would have landed his helicopter. So it is a very sad situation because the state is already overwhelmed. There is nothing they can do. But, You know, when you look at these things, the primary schools, the public facilities where these people can shelter for the meantime so that they can begin to resettle, and it may not even exist. So you now have thousands of internally displaced persons joining other millions of internally displaced persons across various states in Nigeria. So it goes down to tell you that the cosmetic governance we have, where we come, people say the government is doing well, the economy is booming and all this. And when you look through the street, you find that you can't see the signs of the figures bandied on TV, bandied who have in Q1, the economy grew and food prices dropped. So when you come to terms with what is going in Nigeria, we know that Nigeria is like an ungoverned territory where anything happens.
Now, let's also look at some of these images. On the part of the government, the action plan in the interim, whilst the victims are lamenting and recounting their losses, the government has released 2 billion naira, 20 trucks of grains here. This is the photo I was telling you about earlier. This is in Rabba in Mokwa local government area, where amongst the 5 bridges that were damaged by the flood, over the weekend and since the flood occurred, youths took it upon themselves to fell a number of trees, makeshift wooden bridges. They've all come out en masse to help themselves whilst waiting for the government. I don't know if it could be done better. Could we have a construction company, one that has a partnership with the Niger State government, swing into action other than this makeshift bridge we're seeing in Rabba?
Okay, we've had floods like this in Asia, that they even have terrain that are like the Amazon, that it's so difficult to access. In situations like this, you see the military coming in because the military is trained to create some of these makeshift access so that people can move, so that people can be moved. But of course, Boko Haram, banditry, and the rest of them already overstretched our military. They can't even, take care of themselves, as it were. So it is a very sorry situation.
Just to back your point, because I recalled last year when it happened in Maiduguri, we also saw the military swing into action. They were amongst the first responders in that area because they were stationed to fight banditry, but once the floods happened in Borno, we saw them amongst the first responders lifting some Nigerians out of flooded waters last year.
Yeah, so now in Niger, in Mokwa, what is happening? Why is it not so? We have a number of military formations in Niger State. Why is it that nobody is responding? Kogi, Kwara, and Kebbi, other neighboring states, there are military formations there. Why is it that there is no urgent response to rescue these people? So that is to tell you that there is a disconnect between the government and the people of Nigeria. And yes, they are now banding 2 billion naira grains of rice, but you can see that there may not even be any space to cook the rice, as it were. So now in other places, there should be ready-made kind of food that can sustain these people. You should be seeing medical personnel, checking, because soon you will have outbreak of cholera and some
other waterborne diseases.
So it is a sorry situation. But then all hope is not lost, because when people lose hope, then everything is lost. So I think that the federal government should, for the first time, really respond to rescue the people of Niger State from this disaster.
Now, Mr. Edika, more reports coming into our studio at this moment. Is an investigative report that is asking questions, because last year in 2024, there was an issue of a gully erosion in Niger, to which a $10 million grant was given, and 2.2 billion naira flood control spending purse was given to the Niger State government. The investigative report now is asking questions of how the Niger State government expended this monies, and would there be any financial inquiries now that lives have been lost as to how that $10 million and 2.2 billion naira grants for flood control was used?
Well, ordinarily, this kind of issue shouldn't come up. How much is 10 billion or $10 million? If you look at Niger State is one of the largest states in Nigeria by
in terms of last mass, yes.
So when you look at it, already there should have been proper, system built to collate this flood water, because it's like a tableland. When the torrential rains come, it goes either way. But technology has done it so much that even in the middle of the ocean, people channel ocean. That is why you have the Lekki Peninsula today, that a massive land reclaimed from the ocean. That is the kind of engineering that can be done. There are countries, there are cities that are built on water. So it is not rocket science. It's not something that cannot be done. Yes, Niger State, what you will hear, maybe in the next few days, they will tell you some people have been arrested, docked in the EFCC, but I can assure you that that $10 million and the billions of naira released some time ago for Niger State may have just ended up in buying houses in Guzape and Asokoro, other fast rising places in Abuja. And that is because a government that believes in its people, that believes in rendering service to its people, when you say you will do something, you go ahead and do it. And how do you do it? You give the contract. There should be timelines. Okay, you have this. Of course, they knew from last year, from 2 years ago, from 3 years ago, that this flood will come. It is only a matter of time. It can be stopped. The only way it can be stopped is to deploy the resources already allocated to ensure that these things are mitigated ahead of time. But of course, nobody does that. When you go to Niger State, I hear that the current governor is doing some things, but before now, the Niger State is like a wasteland. You can't even access Mina from Abuja or from it's like totally cut off. And that is why you have this banditry. They tell you that several local government and communities have been taken over by bandits in Niger State, because over the last few years, it has become an ungoverned territory. And that is because the people at the helm of affairs do not care, give a hoot what happens to the people that live in the rural areas.
Now we'll see some more pictures, especially when you spoke about the predisposition of these victims to waterborne diseases, particularly children and the women are left to have to go back into the aftermath of the flood to see if they can salvage any clothing or some of their property left. We see the rubbles and the impacts of the flood here. At this point, it's a case of even open defecation, lack of proper water, or even basic social amenities to cater for them. I don't know what makeshift IDP camps and the number of internally displaced persons that we'll be talking about. We hear the number is close to 5,000 persons displaced already.
Well, my prayers and the prayers of other Nigerians are with the victims of the flood, because you can see children future already truncated. Some of the children may never go back to school. Some will join the army of Almajiri roaming the streets. When you drive through the streets of Abuja today, every traffic light, you see children under 10, under 12, trying to wipe your car windshield, begging on the street. These are some of the victims of IDP camps, people who, because the life of begging on the streets may be more comfortable than what they see in the IDP camps. There is no medical care, there is no all manner of diseases. So Nigeria is in crisis, but unfortunately, the government is playing the ostrich, because nobody is talking about what is going on in the country. Nobody is talking about the hunger crisis in the country. Nobody is talking about the security situation. Everybody, they are now, what you see most times in the media is people defecting from one party to the other, people singing the praises of the government without assessing the government, without taking the government to account. And that is the tragedy of Nigeria's democracy as it is called today.
Now, talking about the government, Professor Patu Tomi has been in court, in and out of court, with the Department of State Services over the alleged shadow government implications. This morning, one of the headline stories is that the DSS is praying to the court to stop Professor Utomi and his associates from conducting any rallies or road shows. I don't know the impact of this in being able to speak up or even provide alternative policies to the government of the day? And in your view, has Professor Otomi crossed any line?
Well, by 1960, when Nigeria gained independence, we had this parliamentary system of government patterned after what we have in the UK. And in the UK, you have the ruling government. Of course, you have the shadow government, that they even have portfolios for members of opposition, whereby if there is a Secretary of Finance, then you have a shadow Secretary of Finance in the opposition party, so that you can match the government word for word, wit for wit on its policies. So when people say shadow government, of course, nature abhors vacuum. What it means is that we are standby, we are Nigerians, we are ready. If you people can't do it, we will come and do it. And that is what opposition is all about. It's just semantics. So the DSS cannot tell us that they don't have the basic grasp of English language to know that shadow government is just means an opposition to the government that is on standby to take charge should the government in place fail. And you look at it, I want to say that in the last few years, Nigeria as a country has been scammed by the people in government, because President Bola Tinubu of today was was a skilled and more like a career protester. During we were growing up in Lagos
The
then,
days.
yes, and we knew exactly what some of these people, Fayemi and Co, when they were running the Kudirat Abiola radio, and then which culminated into Tinubu actually becoming the governor of Lagos State at the dawn of democracy on May 1999. So why did Tinubu became Lagos State governor? Because he was seen as those who played a role in ensuring that democracy returns to Nigeria. Today, he's in Aso Rock, and he wishes that no other person should speak. And I think the Nigerian military should just adopt, perhaps give him a uniform, because...
No, hold on, Mr. Idika. I want to understand clearly, because in time past, much like we recall the history of the president in his then Nadeko days and his activism, if that's the best choice of words. Now, Professor Otomi is being accused by the DSS of looking to illegally usurp President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's powers as president. Does the constitution of a road rally or road show differ from some of the protests we saw last year in End Bad Governance? How does it differ? I know that Professor Otomi had his aspirations to become president in 2007 under the ADC, but constituting a road show or a rally, would this translate to illegal attempts to usurp the president's executive power?
The Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999 as amended is very, very clear. First, it recognizes that Nigeria is a multi-political party democracy. That is why today you have 18 registered political parties, which the ruling APC is just one of them. And in fact, APC was registered in 2014, which means as at 1999, when Nigeria returned to civilian rule, because I wouldn't really want to call this a democracy, there was no APC. It was the open civic space that allowed APC to come to be. Now the APC is trying to shrink the space to the point that we have only one political party. And that is why I was going to say that the Tinubu government is becoming militarized, because just like some people discuss online and in some other spaces, if someone posts something in the social media, maybe criticizing the government, within 48 hours, such persons are fished out, arrested. But kidnappers take hundreds of Nigerians into the forests, use mobile phones to call, to arrange ransoms, and nothing happens. We don't see the DSS working. We don't see the Nigerian Intelligence Agency working. We don't see the military or any of the armed forces working. The bandits, Benue State is under siege of armed herdsmen. We are not seeing results there. So when the government is rather, engrossed in trying to beat its own people down, then there is a crisis. Patu Tommy and his group, a group of elderly people. Patu Tommy was in government as far back as 1979. He was a presidential advisor. So, and that is like for something years ago. Is it a Patu Tommy that will lead maybe to take over the government? No. These people are providing intellectual basis for Nigerians to fight for their country. So I don't think there is no law anywhere under not even a martial law, that stops people from protesting.
Now, this nomenclature, shadow government, is it so much of a threat in the mention of a shadow government?
The issue is that APC government of President Bola Tinubu is very jittery. They are jittery because they have not performed and they wish they could continue in this anomaly. And that is why you see, recall some weeks back, Dr. Ganduje, the national chairman of the APC, said that he wishes that Nigeria becomes a one-party state. And he was making reference to China, forgetting the history of China, that even if a Ganduje cannot be featured in the corridors of Chinese government today. He knows his trajectory, he knows his antecedent. So when you look at this, what is going on in the country today, the government of the APC is jittery. But I think that they should rather market what they have done to the country, to the economy, to whatever, all the sectors, and leave Nigerians to be the judge. Because whether the government likes it or not, Nigerians will vote around March, April in 2027. And at that point, if they have done well, Nigerians will reward them with another term. If they haven't, of course, Nigerians will speak. So they should concentrate. They still have 2 more years, or at least a year and a half, to govern this country. A lot of things can still be remedied, including the security situation, including the pervasive hunger in the land. So if the government can put as much effort as it's putting in trying to suppress the opposition, in tackling the crisis rocking the country, then I believe that things can turn around. Nigerians are very grateful people. A little thing, Nigerians are happy. You see that even under the squeezing economic situation, Nigerians are buying petrol at 800, 900, 950, and people seem to be adapting. Why? Because you don't have to, if you want to buy 1 liter, you can drive into a filling station and buy it and go. So that is the nature of Nigerians. Nigerians just want to have a country, a community where they can thrive. We have a Nigeria that has over 250 million persons. The government cannot employ 20 million. All the government in Nigeria, they don't have up to 20 million people really on the payroll.
But in the federal and state civil service.
In the federal and state civil service. Yet, the other hundreds of millions of Nigerians, what they want is just to have a country where they can sleep with their 2 eyes closed, having gone through the stress of the day, wake up the next day, sure that they are going to their shop or their places of business to work and earn decent living. So the DSS, the police, the military, they should concentrate on providing security. If they provide security for Nigerians, Nigeria will grow. But if they look at it this way, DSS, NIA, the military, the police, civil defense, and all the security agencies are paid from the tax of every living Nigerian. In fact, even dead Nigerians are taxed, because if someone dies and the person's money is in the bank still deducts daily transaction, account maintenance, even from the dead people. So every Nigerian living or dead is are the ones funding these security agencies, and they are constitutionally bound to protect Nigerians, not to harm Nigerians, including statesmen like Dr. Patu Tomi.
Now, my question is, if the DSS has this knowledge, more like allow the protest to go on, but let's see what we have where security officials escort whoever is on the roadshow or demonstration to avoid it being hijacked, in their words, or turning ugly. Do you think that this practice of somewhat banning peaceful assemblies or demonstrations or protests is now becoming a misnomer in Nigeria?
It is a misnomer. It has no place in any democracy, and especially not a volatile democracy like we have in Nigeria today. In the first place, neither the DSS nor the police, they don't even have the right to guide protesters. They have their duties constitutionally, statutorily cut out for them. Protect lives and property. And that includes the lives and property of protesters. In certain places, people protest almost permanently. You see people with placards in front of parliament, in front of palaces, in front of residents of presidents and governors. People, it is their right. People have the right to speak out. Okay, we are on ADBN TV today. It's one of the maybe hundreds of TV stations in Nigeria. But in other places, under a military regime, ADBN may not be allowed to operate. I remember that the first independent this in Nigeria was around 1994, thereabout, then AIT and this. Because before then, the military system didn't allow dissenting voices. So Nigeria is a democracy that should be allowed to grow. Nigeria will be better off if it has people-centered governance, not individual or clique-centered governance like we have today. So I call on the DSS and the other security agencies to go back to their constitutional duties and allow the civic space. It is the civic space that even protects even the DSS itself. If they get to the point of, annoying Nigeria to the point that Nigeria becomes more chaotic than it is, even the DSS itself will not find it funny. So they have families, they have cousins, they have parents, they have brothers, sisters that are part of what is going on in Nigeria. But in Nigeria, the armed forces, when they are assigned the arms, they think that they are above the law. They think they are different. They are living in a different planet from the people on the street, and it shouldn't be so. So the security agencies it is their duty to protect Nigeria's democracy. It is their duty to protect our sovereignty. It is their duty to protect our territorial integrity. That is why we have the armed forces. It is not that they should oppress the citizens.
Now, we're exactly a week away from Democracy Day. June 12th has changed from May 29. And there are many calls alongside demands of Nigerians ahead of June 12th. First off, the son of the late hero of democracy, Lekon Abiola, has made headlines this morning. He's asking that the federal government under President Bola Ahmed Tinubu pay the $45 million owed the late patriarch. Alongside that, the Take It Back movement is also threatening a protest come June 12th in marking Democracy Day and the yearnings of Nigeria. All this shaping up, how proactive would it be for the president to tend to Mr. Lekon Abiola's request that the father's outstanding debts be paid as a symbol of the democracy we say we look to uphold?
Well, late Chief MKO Abiola played his part in Nigeria democratization process. Unfortunately, he paid the supreme price, and over the years, in the last 2 decades, Nigeria has continuously honored him. But then his private affair, his private business is strictly his private business. Nigeria cannot take over his private business because it was his private business. I knew there was Concord newspaper, there was even an airline and all manner of concerns, which unfortunately the science of late Chief MK Abiola failed to sustain. As soon as the man died, it's like they scrambled away his wealth and his estates, and the only thing Chief MK Abiola has to himself, even in death, is his name and his public service. So I think Mr. Alekun Abiola should rather look elsewhere for such humongous amount of money, unless if like say in Nigerian parlance, some people are trying to scam the government once again, because I'm hearing this for the first time, and I think that he should be concerned about maintaining the legacy of his late father and not talking about reparation or debt and all that. And I'm sure that someone in the hue of late Chief MK Abiola, his business concerns may also have been owing. Who knows why some of his concerns liquidated and all that. So I think that Nigeria, the federal government of Nigeria, should not be concerned about that. We have forensic accounting firms who can look at some of these things through the avenues. So that is already there by law to look at some of those things and not to make it a public something. He should continue to respect the memories of his father and not talk. I think this is a red herring. It's a diversion, and it shouldn't be.
And on the Take It Back movement, who are proposing a protest come June 12th?
Well, the Take It Back, led by Omoyele Sowore, over the last few months, of course, Sowore is a career protester. I admire him as he's one of the people who has provided conscience for a conscienceless society, because hate him or love him, Showore's place in our democratic process is already permanently etched there. So, of course, just like we were saying earlier, anyone who wants to protest has the right to protest. You can't tell Take It Back not to protest, because the issues they have been talking about are issues that we are faced with every day. The issues of lack of basic social services, just like you've seen in Niger, you've seen in Abuja. Abuja is a very shiny city, but if you drive 5 kilometers out of the city center, the reality of Nigeria stares you on the face. So Take It Back and any other CSO that wishes to protest can go ahead and protest. We are joint stakeholders in Nigeria. We are all Nigerians, and it is our desire that our country be properly run to the point that we can say, yes, we are proud Nigerians. Because what we have today, nobody can say he's a proud Nigerian. Even those in government, they know what is going on.
Now, another issue greeting the rounds in the news this morning is on import duty defaults. Certain VIPs and elites have had over 60 aircrafts grounded. And now the Nigerian custom is taking it a step further to go into hangars in the Abuja and Lagos airports to seal some of them off. It's coming at a time when there was just conversations about the number of VIPs owing ground rents. And now this conversation this morning again, some elites who are looking to shortchange Nigeria. I don't know where we're headed. The FCT minister, borrowing from his words, say these individuals cannot do this outside the country. But when they come to Nigeria, it seems as though they are above the law in payments of either ground duty or even import duty.
Well, I really hope that there is real changes. The current Minister of Aviation has been trying to change a few things, but the law is law when it is applied across board. Because even in this government, when you say 60 aircraft, of course, each time I fly through Abuja, as you are taxing to the runway, you see hundreds of private jets, quartered in all those hangars. And for anyone coming into the country, or this is a very rich country, because perhaps in Nigeria has some of the largest number of private aircraft in Africa. Now, these aircraft, just like you have, you don't even have to go far. When you are going through the airport, you find out that the big convoys with siren, they just zoom off. But the taxi operators are stopped.
You have to pay at the toll gate.
They have to pay at the toll gate. So that is just the sample of what goes on. Okay, now we are here. Each time new ministers, new members of the National Assembly are appointed or elected or assume office, the first thing done to them in FCT is land allocations. But the private businessman who earns his money decently, for you to get land allocation in Nigeria, in Abuja or in any place, you know what it is. So Nigeria, like I've said in several places, that Nigeria has two ethnic groups: the ruling elite and the rest of us. The ruling elite are above the law. They can do anything. If someone becomes a governor, he allocates the choicest land to his own clique, to his family members. The government will buy convoys, spend billions of naira to buy a lot of vehicles. At the exit point, they will auction vehicles bought at 200 million. They will auction it at 50,000 naira to themselves. So it is not just about people owing ground rates, private jet owners. It is the system that we run.
Now, this alleged above the law syndrome, let me put it that way, that some elites display, because I remember last year there was a 1 month grace period between October and November 2024 for those who had not done their verification exercises, for these private jet owners to do it and comply with. Even as we speak, there's a 14-day ultimatum as intervened by Mr. President for those owing ground rents. Why is it that we do not see the anti-graft agencies swinging as much as they do when there are other issues of financial malfeasance by the larger members of the public, much like we see with the elites?
You see, in India, there are people they call the untouchables. And those ones are like the lowest of the lowest on the societal rung. But in Nigeria, the untouchables are the government people, those people in government, the minister, the governors, their family members, the National Assembly members, who can take out a criminal from the police cell with a phone call. Oh, now my person. Oh, sorry, sir. Even when there is a crime committed. So my point is that if the government is really ready, if allow the security agencies, the anti-graft agencies to do their job, ICPC, EFCC, the Nigerian police, but you find out that these things don't get to happen. Yes, a few persons will pay, and then it continues. Do you realize that VIPs in Nigeria do not renew their vehicle licenses? Nobody stops them. Some don't even register their vehicles. So that is the kind of system we have. It's not about private jets. You start with the little ones. Somebody in government buys a vehicle, he registers it one-off time to get the vehicle papers, and for 10 years he never renews the vehicle line because nobody will ask him. He's moving with a siren. No road safety official or VIO or police will say, where's the vehicle particulars? And that is where the leakages come from. And the taxi operator who struggles to make 5,000 naira every day is harassed on the road. Where are your vehicle papers? The Okada riders, the Keke riders. But the VIPs who are driving billions of, a lot of these treated vehicles, that is the bulletproof ones, they're going to billions. Nobody ever pays basic tax on them. Even to import the treated vehicle, they use government fiat. So this one is smoke screen. It's just trying to get public sympathy. I don't believe in any of those things because the system has been calibrated in such a way that certain persons are permanently above the law in Nigeria.
Now let's talk about political undertones in relations to issues like this. Now, the FCT minister addressing members of the press in his most recent media parley said in the last 20 years, when the then PDP was in power, and then it was Alhaji Malam Nasir El-Rufai who was minister of the FCT, certain buildings like the Wadata Plaza were acquired. And ever since then, ground rents on them were not paid. 2 decades later, he's asking that those ground rent be paid, and there are questions of political undertones. His party is accusing him of witch hunting her at a time like this, whilst asking for ground rents. We're seeing that they're not just the only ones. There are over 4,000 others who are owing these ground rents. He was even more specific in listing an elder statesman, Mr. Bode George, and calling the case number under which he is also owing a ground rent. Can we just divorce the issue of political undertones when, even as much as you called it smoke rings, there's an attempt by someone bold enough to ask for these monies?
It is not the duty of the FCT minister to go chasing after people who are owing ground rent. There are departments in the FCT that have that mandate. We have development control, we have FCDA, we have all these agencies. We even have FCT IRS. What, over the years, what has been happening? Why is it that these people have not been doing their jobs? But they go to shops in Wuse Market and Garki Market to harass people.
Is it because of fear of favor?
So when these people come to say, yes, they are trying to make political capital out of it. But the fact is that the system has not worked, not even for a day, against. The system has not taken these people to account. Okay, banks, even FIRS, that has all these billions collected, audit their property. Have they paid? So
the big question.
When you look at all these things, why is it Aso Rock Villa? It has to pay ground rent.
Even quite recently, they were embroiled in electricity debts as well.
Look at it. When you go to military barracks, police barracks, government agents, they don't even pay. Go to federal secretariat, go to Bullet House, find out, have they actually been up to date in paying that which is due to the FCT? They haven't. So it is all, they are all playing to the gallery. In politics, what people do is, when the pressure becomes too much, you create an avenue to vent and then to divert the attention of the people. Because in another few months, the PDP issue, all of them, they will all fizzle out. I'm talking about the ground rent, and nobody will talk about it again. So until the system works, that the law is applicable to every entity across board, that if you come to ADBN TV, irrespective of who is behind ADBN TV, the building will have to pay what it's due to the FCT. The ADBN, they have to pay, if they have to pay to Nigerian Press Council or to National Broadcasting Commission, it doesn't matter who is behind it, just do what you have to do. That is where it's done elsewhere. And that is why those countries are making progress. So my submission on this particular thing is that until the federal government of Nigeria allows each agency, each laws to work, all these things will just be, is cosmetics, just entertaining the public.
Well, moving on to another issue in the news, Abuja in focus again, and it's questions on developments with regards to infrastructure. There's been reportedly a boom in property development, as reported earlier by the Daily Trust newspapers. Whilst Abuja has been divided into what is categorized as highbrow and lowbrow areas, the likes of Katankbe, Guzape, and Sokoro are seeing a monumental increase in the number of rising structures. I know we've been complaining about how tight the economy has been. It almost seems as though developers in real estate, in the private sector, in Abuja, are not hit by this current economic realities. I don't know, in your opinion, Mr. Idika, have you noticed the increasingly blossoming business for property owners in the FCT?
The property business is a section of the economy, irrespective of how depressed the economy is. That section will continue to thrive in its own way. It could slow at some point, boom at some point. But then in Abuja in the last 2 years, of course, if you are a resident in Abuja, you realize that the minister, in terms of basic road infrastructure, just roads, there have been some, and when roads are built, property rates appreciate, because if you want to rent an apartment and you have a tarred street and an untarred street, you most likely will have to go for the tarred street, because you may have to wash your car. If you have a car, you may have to wash it maybe twice in a week. But if you live in the other place, you may have to wash it daily, or as often as you go out with it. Even your shoes, you may have, so these are some of the indices that help in, boosting property business. Yes, there is boom, but also it is also cosmetic in a way, because if you go to places like Guzape, Katankwe, those Jahi, Wuye, those are certain areas that, you see many massive buildings springing up. But when you look deeper, the buildings are empty. People are unable to afford it. Most persons still live in Nyanya, Kubwa, Suleja, and the rest of it, because the reality in the economy, the purchasing power of Nigerians is on ground zero. People can't afford to live in those houses. But when you look at the other way too, there is also a lot of stealing of public resources. And even for the rich man, when you put your money in the bank, chances are if you put 1 billion naira, after 1 year, it may become 900 million. So you lose some value. But some of them, they steal and put it in property. That, well, if someone doesn't live there for 2 years, the house is still there. It will appreciate. So these are some of the underneath reasons behind the property boom. Time before now, people could have 50 accounts and nobody will know that they own those accounts.
Oh, the coming of BVN.
Yes, but today with your BVN and your NIN, we can actually determine how many accounts you have, even when you have shell companies here and there. Despite the intricacies of the links, it can still be traceable. But in terms of property, well, people establish companies, and people use people's names to build houses, and they have their power of attorneys that clearly define who owns the company. Between this gentleman agreement, so you pass through a lot of buildings, you don't know that your debtor is the one who owns the house. So these are some of the issues. The property market is booming in Abuja, also opening up avenue for thieves to take money from unsuspecting public. But the summary is that the last 2 years, because of the opening up of certain areas, you see the Apo Oasis is now more open. People are talking about some warehouse get outside Karu. So because the roads are now accessible, and then because some persons rather will have to put their money in property than put it in the bank, because in the bank you can't guarantee the safety of the money. So these are some of the issues. But beyond that, that sector is a sector that cannot stop because the economy is depressed.
I know in your earlier position, you also cited the fact that if we do a thorough investigation, we might find out that some of these properties are unoccupied owing to the high rents on them. I don't know, in correlation to that, how do we also interpret population growth from this?
You know, where I fault the current FCT administration is that it's doing what is doing window dressing. You can't be talking about property development or sectional improvement without talking of mass housing. Now, what the government should be doing in partnership with the private sector is developing mass housing for Nigerians. You go to, excuse me, the outskirts, you find out that the way people build 2 rooms, 1 room.
You could take a while there to clear your throat. Sorry about that. If we need to, we might even give you a cup of coffee as well.
Thank you. So when you look at this, the government should plan. That is why we have these floods. You plan for Asokoro. If Karu gets flooded, Asokoro will be affected. If Apo gets flooded, Lokogoma will be affected. So you must carry the people along. Those people that cannot afford to live in Asokoro, cannot afford to live in Guzape, where would they live? You see, at the inception of Abuja as FCT, Gwarimpa accommodated most middle
Mr.
income.
Idika, just hold on so that we get the best of you on this explanation. We would need to go on a break to afford Mr. Idika time to get his voice back. Just to reference the conversation is also earlier captured on the Daily Trust newspaper is the headline story as it concerns property boom. The infographics as well as divided it into the highbrow and lowbrow areas of Abuja and the implications in terms of the amounts of rents, the highs rise building and what developers stand to gain. Mr. Idika earlier was making comments on the window dressing approach to this subject. We'll take a break, and when we return, we'll get more insights on him on how the government of the day, particularly in the FCT, can go about mass housing units to provide alternative residence for those affected by whatever disaster there may be. We'll be right back.
Now here's some exciting news. ADBN is everywhere you are. Stay connected with us across all our social media and streaming platforms for exclusive news updates, captivating stories, and more. Join the ADBN community today via our various platforms on Avo TV app, ADBN channel 121, Niger TV app, ADBN TV, Limex World TV app, ADBN TV. Get the latest news straight to your phone. Join our WhatsApp channel. Just search for ADBN TV and hit the follow button. Turn on your notification to stay updated and never miss any part of the experience. Stay in the conversation with us across our social media handles on X at ADBN_TV, Instagram at ADBN_TV, Facebook ADBN TV, YouTube ADBN TV_NG, and keep visiting our website on www.adbntv.com. Watch us live anytime, anywhere. ADBN TV, a part of you.
Well, back on issues in the news this morning as we continue our current affairs driven discussions. I'm still in the studio with Mr. Moses Idika sharing quite his blunt opinions on issues in the news this morning. Before the break, we were discussing the property boom in Abuja. Mr. Idika, in your opinion, said it was not a true reflection of the economy entirety, and you went on to talk about government's approach towards mass housing to curb the housing deficit. Care to pick up from where you left off?
Yeah, yes, like I was saying, the point is that, yes, there is property boom in Abuja, in some areas in Abuja. But when you look deeper, who are those people? Who is living in those houses? Where you're talking about property boom, you're talking of a house worth 50 million, 60 million. Even a director in the federal ministry, because Abuja is basically a civil service society where most federal workers, even a director in the ministry, can that director afford a 50 million apartment? So it doesn't make sense. All over the world, there are elite housing projects here and there. There are places that are cut out. Beverly Hills, we hear of it in the US, and that's where elite celebrities live. But we also have the projects where people have condo apartment, 1 room, 2 room apartment, but with basic standard facilities, not what you have in Abuja today, that you go some places like the houses we have in the outskirts of Abuja, where the majority of the people that work in Abuja live, are like what you saw in Mokwa. That is the kind of houses. If you move past Nyanya, going towards Kefi, it's a chaos, both sides of the road. There is no roads, no access roads. Electricity is not, like you're talking about metering. You see 1,000 persons using 1 meter because even the AEDC is unable to determine the point of access to electricity. So when the housing projects in Abuja, it's cosmetic, it's not a true reflection of what it should be. Imagine, we hear of Orozo, we hear of Kurudu, we hear of all these airport roads, Sule, Kuje, but none of those places you are hearing, none, not even one, is talking about a mass housing where in 2 years, in 1 year, in 6 months, there can be an estate where you have single room apartments, 2 room apartment. All you are hearing is semi-detached, detached. So
terraced apartments.
Terrace apartment. Who are going to live in this terrace apartment? Okay, if you are coming into Abuja from City Gate, you will see the 2 towers. Let's call it World Trade Center Tower in Abuja. It's empty, and it's been like that for 10 years. At what point will people start living in it? That is the kind of property boom you have in Abuja. Empty. If you drive past that building in the night, it's totally dark because there is nobody there. So it's like a monument. It's not functional. Property boom should be functional. It should generate money for those developing it. You go to the bank, you take a loan, you build a house, and then it doesn't generate money. You are hoping that in 10 years it would have appreciated to 100 million. Who told you you'll be alive in the next 10 years? So these are the issue. Like I said earlier, if you go through Asokoro, Guzape especially, Guzape is the new side, Katankwe extension, there are beautiful houses, well coated, but they are all empty. Nobody is living in those houses. That doesn't really translate into property boom. It's just people building houses. This house is 4 years ago, 5 years ago. They are now, the owners are spending money renovating it when it never generated a dime.
Any income source.
And you are talking about ground rent. How do you pay ground rent on an empty property? So it goes round, and you find out that we are running around in circles.
In circles. Well, quite interestingly, other issues in the news before we let Mr. Idika go. We'd also talk about Abuja again, but this time around, let's talk about electricity. The AEDC workers, they have issued a strike threat And the implications is that blackout would have to loom not only in Abuja but in Nasarawa, which relies on the ACD, and in parts of Kogi as well. And over the past few days as well, there have been quite epileptic power supplies for even those categorized under Band A. What do you make of this warning strike by the AEDC workers?
The AEDC workers, they are not even working. Let me give you a practical experience. Last week, Thursday or thereabout, I was on Ogbomosho Street in Garki Area 8, and a little rain came. The high tension wire dropped. It became an emergency. People started making calls. People's vehicles were stopped. You can't move to this point. And we had to call the AEDC number. They picked. And between 8 p.m. and the next day, nobody responded.
The high tension was still dropped on the floor.
Yes. And nobody came. People had to keep vigil to alert unsuspecting persons that there's a live electricity cable there. So, but then AEDC, they told us, is now a privately owned concern, and they generate money every single day. Abuja pays, especially those in the city center, they pay through their nose to AEDC, even with the epileptic nature of the supply. Yet, is it that they can't even make enough to pay their workers? But when you look at all these distribution companies, they declare humongous profits, but it doesn't reflect in the lives of their workers, and so it's corruption that we keep talking about, that has permeated all sectors of our national life. So of course a strike is a valid point within the labor laws and system. So unfortunately the public will suffer, but I just hope that the management of AEDC will be able to resolve whatever it has with its workers. We shouldn't be concerned about that. Good enough, most people are metered now. If you supply, you get paid. If you don't supply, you get paid. But then there are also a lot of people, like we discussed earlier, in the outskirts that are not metered. It's funny that in 2025, electricity companies, distribution companies are unable to meter their own customers, because in metering your customers, you are able to actually
block any loopholes,
and then generate more revenue. But then our system is such that it's already always open for manipulation, because these same workers that wish to go on strike, perhaps for welfare services, are the same workers that would rather give estimated bills to certain customers so that certain monies will go into their private pocket. So they're also shortchanging themselves, because when you shortchange your employer, you are shortchanging yourself, and it will reflect in the kind of profit they make that can be eventually trickle down to the worker. So I think that what should be done. Both the staff and the employers themselves must do that which they have promised to do by the terms of employment, and so I think whatever it's let them not throw us into darkness. Well, because we might just go on our own strike and go to solar, and then they can
we might just tow the part of the state house, which is going towards solar.
And then they can carry on with their electricity.
Now, we just have 3 more points to talk about. The other pressing issue is the issue of the 50% telecommunication tariff hike as approved by NCC. Now, as much as that was approved, the banks and the telcos have been at loggerheads over remittances from USSD. Now, it's also taking a toll on the number of subscribers. According to reports, they've lost 53 million subscribers in the period of that 50% tariff hike. Now, the telcos are threatening to withdraw their services from banks. The NCC is also giving go ahead that they deduct directly from customers' airtime. I don't know, it almost seems as though we're left to bear the brunt of whatever decisions and policies and how it affects the masses.
You know, the economy currently is so opaque that you can't even say what you are paying for. The taxing system, our system today is such that they just want to squeeze life out of Nigerians. If you have a bank account, every single morning as you wake up, you are confronted with 50 naira deduction from your bank, telco, this thing. In a month, so you can't even, I was discussing with someone that I was going to go to my bank later in the week to print my account statement to know exactly what I am paying for. Because you make a call, they deduct. You receive 50 naira, they deduct. You send out 50 naira, they deduct. We don't even know what is allowed. Nigerians are just paying taxes left, right, and center that is not even accounted for. The federal, as Nigerians get, it's an irony that the poorer Nigerian gets, the brighter the figures the government, the CBN releases that we are making money. They said foreign reserve has gone up. Yet we are borrowing. We are being taxed. Today, Nigerians are being taxed. You know, they have done it to the point that it doesn't matter whether you are employed or you are not, because ordinarily, taxes should be from earned income. But you don't earn any income, you get taxed.
And do you see them losing more subscribers? Because alternatively, I've seen Nigerians putting more of their trust in fintechs away from the commercial banks. Do you see that also happening with telecommunications?
I think so. I think so, because the fintechs are taking advantage and the big banks. But the issue is that they are all the same, because even the fintechs are also deducting. You go to any of these major fintechs, you find out that of course,
POS charges.
Yes, POS charges. You can't see money in the banks. The ATM, more than 60% of ATMs in Nigeria don't even dispense. You go to the bank, that there's no cash. You go to the ATM, it's not dispensing. As you are going to your bank, the security is telling you no, it's not dispensing. And then there are POS people lined up around the bank ready to take money from you. So it is a chaos. And the government in place deliberately created the chaos so that you can't even hold them accountable. Because in Nigeria too, you don't know who to blame. Do you blame the banks? How can NCC issue a statement that banks and tech should deduct from Nigerians? NCC, that is a regulatory agency that is primarily supposed to protect the consumers, it has now become a threat to Nigerians, to telco services users. So it is a crisis that every sector is in turmoil. We don't know who to hold responsible for all these mishaps.
Well, would look to conclude this morning by talking about the Salah. The federal government has declared Friday and Monday's public holiday. More or less as we also celebrate with the Muslim faithful, it's the big Salah. There's going to be slaughtering of rams. But the challenge now is inflation has also taken its bite on the prices of staple foods, to include protein, ram, and even tomatoes and pepper. We're told that it's as high as 55%. I know most times people call for the cutting of your coat according to the material available, fabric available at this point. But overarchingly, how do you foresee the Salah celebrations being?
Well, the big people, the elites will celebrate Salah. If you move around, you see various trucks carrying rams here and there, distributing. Some are still giving ram gift. But the average Nigerian Muslim cannot buy ram. People are now resorting to chicken. And when I say chicken, it's not even live chicken. People go to, because they just have to cook and feel happy for being alive to celebrate the Salah. And I wish them Baraka the Salah. But the issue is that Nigerians, and if you go to the ram markets today, you don't see ordinary people like before coming to buy ram. Before, a family or two can actually combine resources and buy ram. But today, it's no longer the case. So, and that goes to all other celebrations, religious celebrations in Nigeria. In Christmas is going to be the same thing. Today, chicken is even as high as 20,000. So, but before now, you could buy a ram for 6,000, 3,000, and so ram. I heard that some rams are even going into millions now. So, it is an unsustainable system, and it's it's a further sign of the times we have been, and it is also part of our call to the government to look inward and see how this thing, because it's a time bomb. A time may come that Nigerians may not be able to hold themselves. People may no longer be able to be gentlemen and ladies anymore. People may have to pour on the street, because that is where it starts. The Arab Spring started, people felt that in Islamic nations, the religion is used to hold them to ransom. But we saw the Arab Spring in North Africa that eventually at least changed some things. So Nigeria is not immune to some of these crises. So the government should stop being complacent and start delivering. We know that for a society to come out from some of the sacrifices must be made. But when only the people are sacrificing, the people in government are not sacrificing. They are still flying private jets everywhere. They are still driving around in hundreds of millions worth of cars. They are still living in mansions. They install solar farms around their compounds. They have 4 standby generators. Yet the average Nigerian on the street is sacrificing. Some of them, like what we talked about just now, the bank charges, the telco charges, they don't care if 200 naira is deducted from their account. But for every 25 naira deducted from an average Nigerian, it's like a pint of blood leaving the body. So the government should look inward and begin now before it becomes too late.
Well, Mr. Moses Idika, we must thank you for your time on the program this morning. We appreciate you.
Thank you very much.
Well, it's been quite the engaging session with Mr. Moses Idika, who has shared his thoughts, reaction to news stories making the rounds.